Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And look at this. This is a fully automated AI workflow with the signal I actually need. Zero noise, zero effort. The entire workflow is fully 100% automated and it sends me an email every day based on my schedule. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build such kind of a system for yourself. So let's get started. Okay, to build this, we are going to use N8N. And before diving deep and start building this workflow, let's look at the architecture. So I have divided this architecture into three sections. The first section is data collection, the second section is data processing, and the third section is generation. So let's look at the first section, the data collection. You can define list of RSS feeds from where you want to pull your data. And this is the phase where on a schedule basis, this data is being pulled into the system. Now, all these RSS feeds are sending you multiple articles and they are feeding all these articles into the system. Now our goal, extract some key information. Once you extract some key information, you merge all the news. You sort it by maybe publishing date, and then we need to filter out, because it might be possible that if you're running this workflow daily or hourly or weekly, there's always a risk that you might be getting some duplicate news because some of the RSS feeds are not updating as fast as some of the others. So this is where what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use an Excel file as a database, and we look at what are the articles that we have already sent in the past, and we filter it out. We also remove some duplicates because it could be possible that when we are pulling data from multiple sources, most of the sources might be talking about some new release that has happened from OpenAI, right? So technically we do not want that a newsletter that we are sending consists of only articles talking about OpenAI new model. So this is a phase where we are going to remove all our duplicates. And this is where we also leverage AI to do the filtering. This is exactly the point where AI is looking at my description, like what kind of stories or what kind of technical articles I like to read. And it takes into that account and also filters those articles and brings those articles in the generation phase. So now, once the data processing phase is done, what we are going to assume that, okay, now our data is into the system, it is being processed, we have removed all the duplicate data, we have filtered out the noise using AI. What we have also removed some of the data that we have already seen in the past. We are going to again ask AI doing some research. After this research, we need to combine all our output and then give this output to another AI model to generate this newsletter. And once this newsletter is generated, so I have also implemented human in the loop. I receive an email, I go through very vaguely what is this article about, I check all the links that this newsletter has, and if everything is fine, I approve it. If things are not fine, then I reject it. So this is the entire workflow. This is what we are going to build. I'm very excited about it, and let's build it together. So let's get started into the interesting part. I'm using N8N, which is hosted on cloud. So what we are going to start with is, first, let's create a workflow. I always like to give this workflow a name so that it is more differentiating, so that I can always go back and look into what I have done. So let's call it AI newsletter demo. This is my name of the workflow. And basically the first step is that we need to add a scheduler, because we need to tell how often this workflow should trigger, right? So there are multiple kind of triggers that we have. We can trigger manually or we can trigger on schedule. So I'm going to schedule a trigger. Maybe we can give a kind of a time, 7 o'clock in the morning, and that's it. So I would say, let's test this trigger. Works. Now, once the trigger is ready, what we need to do, we need to now, as I said, that we need to fetch certain information into our system. So we need to go through this data collection phase. So now let's search for RSS read. And here, basically what we need to define some kind of a URL from where we want to fetch certain information. So I want to extract information from artificialintelligencenews.com, and then let's test it. So when I click on execute step, you see that now I'm getting a creator name, title. Similarly, what we are going to do, add multiple of these RSS feed. And here, for example, I will add another feed, which is maybe Y Combinator. Right, so this is also very, very interesting, that you will find interesting news over there. So I'm pasting this. I'm giving the name up for this node, and if I execute this step, you see I'm getting all the titles, around 30 items from this. So I'm also attaching a node here. Then maybe I also click another one,
Yeah. So now what I'm doing is I have on schedule attached 4 sources from where I'm pulling data, and let's test this workflow. So as you can see, when this schedule will run, it will go to these sources, pull data from there. From artificial intelligence, we got 12 items. From Y Combinator, we got 30 items. From NVIDIA, we are getting 18 items. And from the last one, we are getting 20 items.
Now we have 4 sources, and from these 4 sources, the data is flowing into our system. And as I shown in our architecture pattern, that in the data pre-processing step, we need to first extract some key information, right? So let's start with that. So let me copy this note. I'm just using these notes to organize my work. It's not necessary. Okay, so this note that I have created shows now all the things that I'm going to add in this section will act as a data processing phase. So now the first thing that we need to add is we need to edit the input field that is basically coming into the system. What we need to do is as follows. Here, what I'm going to add, title, and I'm going to use a regex to really extract the title. I will share my workflow with this so that you can also copy paste this. Now, what also I want to extract from this is basically links, right? So I want to extract link from this, and then what I'm going to add also is date, right? So when this article was published, and here I'm also going to add, you can see it is extracting it in a certain format. Then another one, which is content. Now, if we execute this step, you see now the data that we are getting from the RSS feed is transformed into a structured format, only the things that we want, and that's it. Then the rest of the things are very easy because you can just duplicate this. So just let's go and check if everything is fine. Execute previous node. So now you see here, this doesn't work because there's no content.encoded. Let's remove this. Now we have it. And this is exactly a kind of problem that could happen. And you cannot just blindly copy paste things. As you can see here, we are not getting from Y Combinator any kind of content, right? So it's very important that we look at each stage, try to see if the data makes sense or not. Because now as a next step, what we are going to do is we are going to merge everything together, right? So what we are going to do, let's search for merge node, and here we are going to have 4 things to merge. And okay, so let's go for it. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we have merged everything. So think about this. If you are bringing all these data and they all have different schema, and if you want to combine them together, you cannot merge this and create a kind of a normal table. So this is one of the reasons why we have introduced this stage where we are defining the input schema, where we are saying we need title, link, content, and publishing date for all of these. And if in some case it could be possible that the content is not there, we will fill it with null, but the overall schema is the same. And now what we are going to do is that we are going to combine all this into a single, right? So now if we are going to execute this, we are merging everything together. We are getting 80 items. Now let's some kind of filter to it, and maybe we can define, so date shouldn't be null. Then maybe we can add some kind of a content if the content is basically not empty, and then we can also add link, because link is important, that your link is also not empty, right? So what we are trying to do, giving a kind of a condition that okay, date shouldn't be empty, your content shouldn't be empty, or your link shouldn't be empty, right? So when we execute this step, what do we get? The output of this is 32 items. And now you understand, right? So what has happened, that we have actually filtered out all the link from Y Combinator with this stage. Okay, so now let's add another node, which is sort, because the idea is that now we will order this content that we have fetched, filtered it out, and sort by date. So let's bring the date and sort by descending. And now we will execute this step. So now before jumping to the next step, I want to show you this spreadsheet, which I have saved in my Google Drive. And this spreadsheet contains only 2 things. One is links and the other one is title. I have added dummy and A as an example, because now I will add a node in my workflow, which is Excel node, where I will fetch these rows from this sheet. Okay, so now I'm going to add new node, which is this spreadsheet. You can actually go and get it from here. You search for Google and you get a spreadsheet. And basically the idea is that during the time when this schedule should trigger, we should also fetch data from this sheet. Why? Because as I told you, every time when this workflow
triggers, it fetches the past data that we have sent, compares it, and filters out any duplicate, right? So we do not want to send the same news over and over again. So let's execute this node and let's look at the output. So as you can see, the spreadsheet that I showed you before, I added a dummy link and title A. And this is what you are seeing right now. So once we fetch this data from this spreadsheet, now we have this information about what kind of news that we have already shared in the past, right? And this area where we are fetching all the news from the feeds and sorted by publishing date. Now what we need to do is that we need to do some kind of a join where we filter out all the news that we have already sent in our previous days, right? So let's search for merge, and this would help us achieve this. So let's click on this, and what we are going to do, we will attach this out and this input. And when we are going to execute this, so what is happening is that we are saying that we are going to keep only things that are not matching from links from input 2. So what I'm doing is that I'm doing a comparison between links of all the data that we have versus the links that we are bringing from the Excel file. And we run this step, and here we see 80 items. Okay, now why are we seeing 80 items? Because before we were seeing 32. Let me check. So we are running this merge state. We execute this, right? We are getting 80 items during the merge, and during the filter, after running the filter state, also we are getting 80 items. Why? Okay, so before somehow this content field was not being populated for the Y Combinator. Still, we do not have any content, but it's not null, right? So that's why it is now also including all these data from Y Combinator. Maybe there was some glitch, but you get the gist. Now we want to send this data that we have extracted to our AI model. And this would be the first round of AI, where AI would filter out things and only pick up maybe 6 to 8 articles for the newsletter. So let's first write a simplistic code in JavaScript, which we will use just to clean out some data. Now, next step, what we need to do is we need to use any simple AI model. Here, I'm going to use OpenAI. So basically, I'm going to use a node of OpenAI, which is a message model, right? This is what I'm going to use. And here, basically, I'm going to add a system prompt. I already have a credential attached OpenAI account. So you just need to go to your OpenAI API, get an access token, store it here, use a resource as text. Operation is a message model. I'm using GPT 5.2 because I need a good model to really look at this text as an input and understand what is relevant for me, right? In a system prompt, so I have defined the role, I have defined what it needs to do, what are the core challenges in the data, I have defined the constraint, and I have defined the output formattion. And now when I'm going to execute this step, what do I see is that ChatGPT has given me a list of articles, which I'm going to use for the next step. Now we increase the size of the note. Now, what we need to do, because now we are getting a big chunk of text. Again, let's do some kind of a reformatting. We are going to use code, which is a JavaScript code. So now let's attach this node to the output, what I'm getting from the model. I have attached a kind of a code to it. And when I'm going to execute it, I should be getting a well-formatted table, as you can see. So this is the input that I was getting ChatGPT, and as you can see, I have converted using this code into a table format. Now we have a well-formatted data, and this is a point where now what we can do is that we can append the important informations into our spreadsheet that we use it for as a database. So basically the goal is that now we would like to add all these links and titles that we are getting from this model, because this is what we are going to use to send a newsletter to our sheet, so that next time when my workflow executes, these links are already present and we can filter out the state. When I'm going to execute this step, we should be seeing that 8 rows should be appended in our Excel file. We have all the rows appended, and basically we have now links and titles already added in our spreadsheet, which next time when we are going to restart this workflow, these links will be filtered out. Let's go to the next step now. Now I would like to do a deep research, because it might be possible that the article that I'm referring to, they do not have very detailed information. So what am I going to use now is Perplexity to do deep research. So let's add a node where we are going to use Perplexity. Yeah, and let's click and add this node here. Okay, so now I'm going to attach whatever is coming out of this node. to perform a kind of a deeper search. I have already added basically my credentials. So what you just need to do is that you need to go to Perplexity. You can use any other model. I have also defined a system prompt here. Same, I have defined role, the mandate, what it needs to do, what is the content architecture style that it needs to give me. So it's a really, really detailed prompt, and also I'm giving as an input. So I'm just using what we have got from the last stage, from the code node, and I'm passing all these information here. And when I'm going to execute this, what I'm expecting is that I will get a very detailed, well-researched for each topic. The content that I have is enriched with all other resources which it has found. And then as a next step, what we are now going to do is that we need to aggregate all the information that we are getting from Perplexity and format it in a way that now we will send it to another AI, in this case OpenAI, to now generate an art. So this is really the last step of processing. Now we will aggregate. So again, I will go to this stage, run, click on this, and I have a node that is going to aggregate my data, which is coming from Perplexity. Here, I am going to execute this step. Now, once my data is being aggregated, now I will again write a very simplistic code, which will do the transformation. And this is really the last step. Let's start with edit node. And this is the first step when we are bridging from processing to generation. And in this edit node, I'm doing nothing. I'm just adding whatever the combined content that is coming from the previous stage to here. Okay, so let's start with a generation phase. So we'll add now another node, which is generation. And whatever we are going to add here will play an important role in the content generation, right? Okay, what we are going to add is our OpenAI model, and what it is doing, it is taking the input from our previous stage, which is this one, right? And technically sending it to a model, and the model is going to generate a kind of newsletter for us. Of course, I have given a very detailed prompt about how it should generate this article. And let's execute this step. So I see OpenAI has generated some kind of a text, and now it's time to add another stage, which is a markdown. Yeah, and now we are going to use this to basically attach whatever output that we are getting from OpenAI. Now I'm passing this as an input to this stage. And when I'm going to execute this, of course, you won't be able to see much of a difference, but in the next stage, here things will start getting interesting. So let's zoom in, and now it's time to add another stage, which is whatever content that we have generated. So basically what we are going to do is that we will use Gmail, right? And there, basically, we are going to send a message and wait for a response. So let's add this stage connected to the previous one. So what do you see? I have already attached a credential to my Gmail account. So you just need to add this, and I'm passing a subject, approval required, newsletter, and I'm also passing date, which is now. And here I'm passing this data, and I am giving options like approval, approve or disapprove. Approve, which would be the primary button, and decline would be the secondary button. Execute this stage, and we are expecting that we should be getting an email for this approval request. Okay, so now we have an email received 9 minutes ago. We are seeing all these nice content with resource link, and basically in the end, there should be 2 buttons, right? Yeah, so there are 2 buttons, decline or approve. After going through this content, you can decide if this should be shared with others or it should go for the regeneration phase. We haven't implemented that part, but let's approve this. And when clicking on this approve button, what would happen? We would see the node or the stage that we had before should be completed. So now our stage is complete. Now let's add a condition. If, let's say, we approve it, the entire email should be sent to wider group. If we don't approve it, then it should go for a regeneration phase. How should we do it? Let's add a if statement, right? Simple. We use an if statement, and this is here. I will pass an output of this to an if, and here what we are defining that, okay, if the date from the previous stage approved is set to true, then you move ahead. Otherwise, it will return false. So if I execute this, what do we see? The output is set to true. If it is false, then it should go back here, right? What I'm going to do is that I'm going to add an email. Let's go for this and click on Gmail and basically attach it to this. This is basically the last part of our entire workflow. Okay, so what I have done is that I have re-triggered the workflow, and now we have implemented also if and else condition. So last time when you saw in our email, when we got this review for any email, we had 2 buttons, decline or approve. During that time, we haven't implemented any kind of a logic, right? So it didn't matter if we could have approved or declined it. But now if we decline it, then this loop will re-trigger, and again we will get an email to review. Until unless we do not approve it, this loop will be there. So this is called human in the loop. And once we approve it, then we should get a well-formatted newsletter. Okay, so now we have again an email where it is asking me for my approval. I will decline it. And when I will decline it, what should happen? The loop should re-trigger. You can see when we declined it, this false condition triggered, and now OpenAI is again regenerating an article. So let's wait for it. And what I'm expecting is that once OpenAI comes up with a new article, I should get another email for an approval. Let's go and check it. Nice. 0 minutes ago, I got new approval request. Let's say I go through it, looks fine. So when I approve it, you can see is that the main formatted newsletter is being sent to my email. So let's go and check how this new newsletter looks like. Awesome. We have received an email 1 minute ago. And of course, now you see the format of newsletter is amazing. Look at the amazing workflow that we have created in this video. We have gone through 3 stages: data collection, data pre-processing, and generation phase. In the end, we also incorporated human in the loop, which means that if you are sharing this content with others, you have this review process in between, which you can use to really validate the quality of your newsletter. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you like it, please subscribe, and see you in the next session. Keep learning. Bye-bye.